Heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
And a very warm welcome everyone to the Maximum Network's Touring Car Trophy powered by VRRC. This is a brand new series here at VRRC and we've assembled a grid of drivers who are guaranteed to provide us with 6 weeks of exciting bumper-to-bumper touring car racing. A mix of real-world tin-top racers will go head-to-head with some seriously fast sim racing talent over a 6-event 12-race season, and with plenty of high-value prizes up for grabs at the end of this, the competition is guaranteed to be fierce. It all gets underway here tonight with a pair of races around the demanding but hugely popular Oulton Park International Circuit. And this is a place close to not only many of the drivers' hearts, but also to your commentary team. My name is Andy McEwen, and I'm super excited to have Jack Oliphant alongside me for the whole season. Jack, touring car racing, Oulton Park. It doesn't get much better than this, does it?
No, it's right up my street. And to be honest, here at VRRC, we've been very much looking forward to hosting Maximum Networks and, of course, the Touring Car Trophy E-Series. So the fact that we're starting at Oulton Park is obviously a massive bonus. We both love it, Andy. But the rest of the track looks absolutely awesome as well.
Yeah, it is the best of British, really. We start here at Oulton Park, and then weekly on a Thursday evening, we will race twice at Silverstone on the international circuit. Then a week later, 2 races on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Thruxton, unofficially the fastest racetrack in the UK, is our 4th venue, taking us into the second half of the season. Donington Park's always exciting Donington Park National Circuit hosts the penultimate round. And then on the final round, the 24th of February, the Snetterton 300 track will be the venue for the final rounds of the championship. And Jack, given how competitive this field looks, I reckon Snetterton will have one heck of a championship finale to hold.
Yeah, I love Snetterton. It's got a little bit of a mix of everything. Some high, medium speed corners, sharp braking zones, overtaking opportunities. It has the lot. And the fact that it's going to be the finale means they're going to be racing for the prizes you can see on your screen. And Andy, they are absolutely amazing. Easily the best prizes we've ever had on VRRC. First place in gold and silver is a TCR UK test day, a Touring Car Trophy test day. That is shared between the gold and the silver, so the gold winner will have half a day and the silver winner will have half a day. So even if you're competing in the silver category, you're still in for a great shout of having a fantastic day out. OBP hydraulic pedals as well as second prize for the gold, and Riggs SR5 simulator chassis, the highest sim racing chassis that VRRC offer, is third place for the gold category and the silver category, of course. Then it doesn't stop there either, Andy. Fourth place, 2 VIP tickets to a Touring Car Trophy TCR round, and then 5th place, 2 hours simulator training at Silverstone in VRRC's bespoke simulator training centre. So prizes all the way down to 5th for gold and silver, pretty much guarantees if you're consistent and you stay on track, you're going to walk away with something.
One you really want there is 4th prize, isn't it? Because 2 VIP tickets to a TCR round, you never know, you might even get to have a cup of coffee with me and Paul O'Neill, and that honestly is a prize that money just can't buy. So
people
I
will
reckon
fall off of the mouth for that.
Exactly. So yeah, some really good prizes here. It's gonna certainly result in lots of fierce competition out on the track, and there are many drivers that will feel capable of scoring a top prize this season. Well, as we said, Oulton Park is the venue for our opening 2 races. They'll have a 15-minute qualifying session and 2 20-minute races, a reversed grid for the second one as well, which is certainly something we're looking forward to. The Oulton Park circuit is looking splendid as always. Why don't we take this opportunity then to familiarise ourselves with the host venue for our opening round of the championship with an onboard hot lap.
So here we are coming across the line for round 1 here at Oulton Park for the Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy, brought to you by VRRC. Grabbing quite a lot of apex there, and then try not to run it too wide on eggs. You don't really gain anything by doing that. Flat out down towards Cascades, turn 3, very, very tricky indeed. Trying to commit as early as you dare on the power then 4th gear without it pushing too far wide. You can see we were on the very edge of the grass there. Flat out through Isle of Ben, just a little lift with a ride and a little brake, and then towards the hairpin, trying to get down to second as soon as we can on full throttle as well, to driving up and out of the hairpin. Very, very critical indeed. And then to a super difficult first chicane. Very bouncy with the back end. You want to keep it nice and straight with that wheel on the brakes going into there, and make sure we get early on the throttle to lock that diff up and get brilliant drive up and over hilltop. Now down to the second chicane, no room for error here. Getting as close to the walls as we dare. Try not to get on the inside of that curve because it really does bounce the car a lot, but take a lot of the right there and then get a great drive up through Clay Hill, turn 13. And for me, one of the most difficult corners, turn 15, the right-hander as we get round here. Really fast, pinpoint accurate, but very easy to run it wide and on the grass over this crest. Also great place to set up an overtake, going down towards Lodge Corner here, the last corner, down to second gear, but an early upshift just over the crest. Otherwise that boot just starts to push that front end on the grass. And there is a lap of Oulton Park. Make sure you tune on Thursdays on VRRC's YouTube at 7:30, and also make sure you give this video a like and subscribe.
Oulton Park circuit, it is a real driver's favourite, and you can see there from the driver's eye view exactly why that is. It's got something for everyone really, high speed corners, tight corners, lots of undulations. It's got a really nice flow to it, and the drivers will be trying to tune into that nice flow now and get into a nice rhythm, because the qualifying session is well underway, actually 4 minutes into the 15-minute session already, so some flying laps starting to come in, and this is always an important part of the night, Jack, but Oulton Park is not known for being the easiest of places to make a clean overtake at, shall we say, so track position that you can win here through this qualifying session is vital.
Yeah, using the word clean is probably the utmost importance there. We've seen plenty of times in various touring car races, haven't we, how people sort of force the issue, but hopefully we won't see any of that today. You're right, qualifying is extremely important around Oulton Park, and by the looks of the times that we've got on the board at the moment, you're actually looking at Jack Smith qualifying currently in second place. But look at the difference between himself and Keithley, and also McIntyre, in that little sandwich of top three. Separated by less than a tenth of a second, separated by 600ths of a second in total, those top three. And this is similar to what we were seeing on Tuesday night at VRRC in the MX5 Cup. So we're very much looking forward to seeing these two reigniting their battle that we had on Tuesday. McIntyre and Smith were absolutely awesome. And then Keithley thrown into the mix as well is just a sight to behold and a treat for us all, I think. So I think there's some more green, purple sectors flying about the place. This qualifying is nowhere near done.
No, most definitely. The tyres should now be in the ideal operating window, so this is when the quickest lap times will come. Although, having said that, Jack Keithley, having set that 1 minute 40.6, has bailed for the pit lane, so he's going to stick on a fresh set of boots and go back out again. Dave Newsham is also in the pit lane, two-time British Touring Car race winner Dave Newsham. But it's Keithley from Smith, from McIntyre, the top three. Jack McIntyre does not improve on that occasion, a 10th off his previous best, and he goes on to another lap. You can see we've got a busy grid of around 20 cars then heading out onto the circuit, so finding clean air shouldn't be too difficult. It's a decent length circuit, but the last thing you want to do when you're on that hot lap is come across a slower car. And of course, now we're into this middle part of the session, Jack. Some people heading for the pits, coming back out, heat cycling new tyres. You've got cars out there that are going massively faster or slower than each other. It's easy to fall over someone.
It's very easy, especially as you mentioned that Oulton Park is not exactly the widest circuit. It's not the easiest to make a clean overtake. You really have to sort of come offline, and then you're worried about another driver maybe going back online and all this sort of this, that and the other. But whilst we have got a little chilled 30 seconds where we don't see too many purple sectors, although Jack Smith has just set a purple sector 1, we'll explain on the left-hand side of your screen, those of you who are new to VRRC's footage, a G and an S is in between the driver's name and their car number on the left-hand side of your screen. That indicates whether they're in gold category or silver category. We'll explain that as we go forward. There'll probably be a little bit of more of a lull maybe halfway through race 1 where we can go into detail. But essentially, if you're here supporting a driver, make sure you keep an eye on if the drivers around them are gold or silver category as well, because that's quite important.
Yeah, and do let us know as well on the YouTube chat, for example, who you're supporting if you're here cheering on any particular driver, you've got any questions for him, or any questions maybe you want us to ask some of the drivers. We'll be getting some interviews from race winners and podium finishers throughout the night, so do get in touch, like, comment and subscribe on the video, and we'll do our best to get around to as many of those messages as we possibly can throughout the night. It is then Jack Smith who goes to the pole position, and that is a really impressive time, 1 minute 40.3. That's closer to what we were seeing during the very competitive practice session earlier on tonight. Keithley second, McIntyre third, with Jordan Brennan here in fourth position. Brennan making his way out of the Shell hairpin and up towards the Britain chicane, just past the halfway mark in the session. And it's looking tight at the top in the gold class, at least. In the silver class, you can see the highest placed of those silver drivers is here. That is Paul Zanatachi. The silver drivers, they'll be up there mixing it with some of the gold drivers, I reckon, Jack, but you only score points within your class. So if a silver driver finishes third or if they finish seventh, it makes no difference. It's all about their position within the class. So how much they will fight each other awaits to be seen.
Yeah, so for instance, as an example, let's say Paul Zanatachi, this is the checkered flag in race 1. Zanatachi comes 7th, top silver. But Dave Buki, he's in silver. He comes down in 11th overall. Dave Buki would in essence be third. Paul Zanatachi would in essence be first, sort of thing. So that's why we made that distinction earlier on, to make sure that if a driver you're supporting is fighting and he's a silver driver, he's fighting with gold, all he needs to do is not hit the gold drivers and not fall off the circuit, and he'll be in a pretty good position, I imagine. So, yeah, always an important distinction, and it's one that the drivers need to get in tune with as well, because when you're out there racing, you know as well as anyone now, Andy, especially in sim racing, you just want to race the person next to you. Sometimes thinking about the championship is not always at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, and you might be thinking about only racing people within your class, but the people around you might not be, so sometimes you have no choice but to get stuck in with them. For those of us watching on here from the sidelines, then the difference in wing mirror colours is what you need to watch for. Cars like this one with a gold set of wing mirrors, they are the gold class cars, and funnily enough, those with silver wing mirrors are in the silver class. So Dave Newsham we saw there is Zanatachi down to 8th place now, and actually only a 10th and a bit clear of Mick Sutton. So the top two silver drivers pretty much on a par at the moment. Dave Buki just outside the top 10 overall. Most drivers now have been in the pit lane for a change of tyres, so I expect in the final 5 minutes there'll be another flurry of activity. It will take quite something, won't it, though, to knock Jack Smith off the top of the timings here. 3/10 is a decent cushion.
Yeah, he didn't have that kind of gap when we were racing MX-5s on Tuesday, so either he's put a lot of time and effort into the TCR car, or he's just more suited to that front-wheel drive action. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. He was in the Super Touring Championship that we hosted, I think at the back end of last year in late December, and he was very quick in that once he switched to the front-wheel drive car as well. So I think it was the Volvo he switched to instead of the BMW, and he was rapid. He suddenly turned up and really made a name for himself. So here at VRRC, those of us who are regular viewers will know full well what he's about now, but I think a lot of these real-life drivers will probably be a little bit surprised at how quick some of the sim races are, and maybe that they have to go away and practice a little bit harder to catch up to them. Probably not Keithley, though, because he seems to be pretty on it.
Yeah, Jack Keithley, a Williams esports driver, as Mick Sutton goes to the top of the silver class. Look at that, wow. 7th place overall. A really good effort. He got himself some clean air. That looked like a nice, a clean lap as well. And Sutton within a second of the outright pole position, and that gives him now a couple of tenths in hand over Zanatachi. He and Buki have also now been separated there. You can see Walters has jumped into 10th place. And here is Rich Hayden. Now, Rich was, he's into the top 10. That's decent, actually. A 141.5 is a little bit faster, Jack, than he was managing in the early days of his pre-event practice. He found a little technique, didn't he, to find a bit of extra time eventually, and he's using that well now.
Yeah, exactly. He used the common sense of putting his glasses on. It's amazing what he can do. Amazing what you can do once you actually get the vision that you can actually see the screen, isn't it? But yeah, so it looks like he's doing quite well, and obviously he'll be hoping to jump in for an interview afterwards as well to sort of review how the evenings went. He always likes to come and have a chat, does Rich. But you can see, as he said, he'll be very, very pleased with 10th place. He's obviously given himself the gold categorization as well, which is nice to see. I thought maybe he'd chuck himself in silver and try and get some podiums, but no, he's gone for gold and he's decided to push himself.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's 10th overall, but that's 8th within the gold class. He's got a few gold drivers behind him, one of whom you'll notice right at the bottom of the timing sheets is Isaac Smith. Now, Isaac Smith is subbing for Rob Butler. There is Isaac out on track. Rob Butler, Civic Cup race winner from 2021, is hopefully going to be doing the rest of the season, but he can't make it here today. So you can see Isaac is driving the car that has Rob Butler's name and Rob Butler's sponsors on it. He will still score points towards Rob Butler's championship campaign, only half points though, because it is a substitute driver. But he was someone, Jack, that we expected to be right at the front, but I believe he's had some issues that have prevented him from getting out there until these final 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast, who does a brilliant job on the broadcast as well with the cameras and the graphics and everything like that, he noted that actually Isaac hasn't even set a lap time. Obviously, you mentioned that he's only scoring half points, so whatever he does tonight, whether it be a miraculous back of the grid win or whether he qualifies on pole position, it's still only going to be half points to Rob Butler, not even his own score. But it's still going to be interesting to see how he gets on as Jordan Brennan puts in 2 purple sectors and a green to come up to second place, and it's only separate from Jack Smith. Only separated from Jack Smith by 700ths of a second. I'll get there at some point tonight.
That came out of absolutely nowhere, that, didn't it? Brilliant effort. And yeah, within a 10th now pole position, Jack McIntyre goes through. I think that was also a personal best lap time. Stays 4th, but look at that, only 100th, just less than 100th of a second, 9 1,000ths of a second adrift of Jack Keithley. That's a battle I'm intrigued to see here, Jack. Jack Keithley, a Williams esports driver, Jack McIntyre, a Rocket Sim Sport driver, so they're both members of pretty known and successful sim racing outfits, and they are at the moment almost inseparable in lap times. There was Keithley, there goes Isaac Smith, and that is a bit more like it. He only needs a couple of flying laps and he's straight onto the pace, 5th place.
I was going to say, he's got a minute and 20 seconds to put another one in as well. It's going to be interesting to see how he cracks on, but 5th place out of 1 flying lap is pretty impressive. I mean, what's going to be very interesting as well is obviously Smith, Brennan, Keithley, McIntyre. 3 of those top 4 regular racers here at VRRC, and they know each other very well. Keithley putting his name into the mix, and here comes Eric Axelsson as well, new to VRRC, but certainly making the name for himself on a Tuesday night as well. Axelsson, he's a hard racer, but he's very, very fair. He likes to pick his moments, so starting in 5th place might actually be the best situation for him. But we're starting to see those green, those purple, those final flying laps where the drivers are really pushing the limits come to the floor.
We are. We're into the final 35 seconds. Of course, if you're on a flying lap at the time at which the checkered flag flies and the time ticks down to 0, you can still complete that lap. So everyone's scrambling to get to the line now if they've still got the tyres underneath them. But of course, once you get 2 or 3 laps on these tyres, they will start to wear out. So the performance dips as a result. Dave Buki here, all the way down in 14th place, but that's still 3rd best of the silver drivers. Dave Buki is a well-known figure within British motorsport, runs Kinetic Motorsport, who run seemingly half the grid these days in the Honda Civic Cup in the UK. Buki himself a very quick driver both in real life and in the sim, and he does find a big chunk of time there. He will come across the line to go 12th place, and I think he may have just scraped through there before the checkered flag came out. If he didn't, then he was the first person to see that checkered flag, as the session does now draw to a close.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, drivers who are on a flying lap will get to complete that flying lap, but from what I can tell, there's not too many about that are actually pushing the car in the final few sectors. This one, Paul Zanatachi, mentioned as we said, inside the top 10, 2nd place in his class. Jack Smith about to come across the line. It's a green sector too, so Smith is actually pushing on hard here. He doesn't have anything to gain. He could lose something, but by the looks of it, no one else is really pushing. He comes across the line. It's a 40.3, but I don't think that's any faster or slower or really any different.
No, that was a couple of tenths off in the end, his previous best lap time. So Smith sees the checkered flag. Jack McIntyre, has he got anything, perhaps not for the top 2, but maybe for Jack Keithley, even 1 position higher on the grid here at Oulton Park, can make all the difference. Up towards the double apex right-hander at Druid's corner he goes, throws the car in, get the rear rotating, hook up both apexes. That was nicely done, a little bit wide on the exit. There is a bit of traffic just up the road, which hopefully will stay out of the way. Looks like he'll just catch it coming out of Lodge Corner. That car may be headed for the pit lane. McIntyre then one of the final few drivers on a flying lap then. The top 3 you can see have all taken the checkered flag with no change of position. Can McIntyre improve on 4th? The answer is no. And so the front few rows of the grid are set now. And, well, that sets us up pretty well, I think, for this opening race. Jack Smith on the pole position, Jordan Brennan alongside him, Jack Keithley and Jack McIntyre on row 2. Helps clearly, Jack, if your name starts with J. You should get out on the grid and see how you fare.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, clearly I would just be destined for the podium positions, but no, absolutely not. There's a reason I'm in here with you. But if you were to ask me, what's your dream top 5 that you think we're going to see a fantastic race 1 and race 2 potentially coming from the back of the grid, I would have picked these 5 drivers, really. There's obviously a whole host of others, but before we get into it, before we get into any interviews or anything like that, we're going to quickly have a look at one of our sponsors.
At Smart 5, we do things differently. It starts with our 100% buyback guarantee. When you buy SmartFi token on the Smart Portal and hold it for a year or more, we'll buy back your token at the price you paid for any reason under the sun. You can borrow cash with our collateralized crypto loans or earn up to 13% interest on your holdings. SmartFi unleashes the true potential of cryptocurrencies, and there are so many reasons now more than ever to get involved. Join us today at smartfi.com. Grow your wealth and secure your future with simple, smart, and safe finance.
Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy, powered by VRRC, is about to get underway here from Oulton Park. We've had our 15-minute qualifying session. The first of two 20-minute races is just around the corner. And after a really tight qualifying session, I think we're in for one heck of a battle out on this narrow, challenging, demanding racetrack. But one that, for all of its supposed lack of overtaking opportunities, it always does produce close racing, doesn't it, Jack? I don't know what it is about Oulton Park. It might be hard to actually find a way past the cars in front, but staying together in a big group, that does seem to be the Oulton Park way.
Yeah, sometimes it's because a bottleneck is created somewhat because it is so difficult to get past, but other times it's just because, you know, the tiniest mistake, and maybe slightly off the track on entry, or maybe just missing the apex by half a car, something like that it's so crucial around a track that flows like Oulton Park that you just end up losing that 0.2 of a second over the course of the entire lap, and that just brings you into a battle.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And if we particularly get into the reversed grid race later on today, that will become a factor, I think, as you get some drivers at the front of the grid that maybe aren't on the ultimate pace, but potentially can get their elbows out and defend a race lead. That will certainly help them. The format, I remind you, for tonight then, as I said, 2 races, 20 minutes the pair of them. For that second race, the entire grid is reversed. So you score good points in race 1, and that's going to put you towards the back of the grid for the second race. Jack Smith joins us here in the commentary box. I didn't see you sneak in then, Jack. Apologies. Congratulations. Solid start to the championship there, but it's tight out there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, I 2 days ago I thought it'd be mid-pack, and here I'm sitting on pole position, so it's a bit of a shock to the system to be right at the front end, a god lab right at the end there, hitting the 40.3s right at the end. So yeah, I couldn't ask for anything else. So just got to do the job of the race now.
Well, yeah, I mean, half the job is done in qualifying, and around Oulton Park, that track position is crucial, isn't it? But you've got to get off the line well, got to be careful on cold tyres. So what's the game plan here in the first lap?
Yeah, just sort of make sure I'm into the lead at turn 1. Make sure I get the best start possible. These cars are particularly tricky to get off the line well, so it'd be crucial to get that right. But yeah, just make sure I'm in the lead turn 1. Just get my head down, see what I can do.
Excellent. Well, we'll let you continue with your pre-race preparations then, about a minute to go before the race starts. Jack, best of luck.
Perfect. Cheers, guys.
So Jack Smith then, your pole sitter for the opening round of the Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy, powered by VRRC, and it is going to be a fascinating start to the season.
What sounds like a Jack Smith there as well. He's just thinking about getting his head down. As you mentioned, Andy, it's all about that momentum and just trying to stick for your racing position off the line, especially if you're on pole. Realistically, it's difficult for someone to go around the outside of you. But Jordan Brennan, I've seen him do it, and I've seen him try it, and I think it's going to be a bit of a risk. It's a long championship to go, but I wouldn't be surprised if he just decides, you know what, I want to try and take the initiative. He obviously put in the 40.3 as well. They were separated by less than 700ths of a second. There's no reason why he shouldn't be in the race lead by the end of lap 1 either. So I'm interested to see how they weigh this one up.
Yeah, well, we are about 30 seconds away from finding out. Our car on the left then, the blue and pink car, that is Jack Smith. Alongside him, Jordan Brennan. Those two separated by just 69 one-thousandths of a second in qualifying. Jack Keithley and Jack McIntyre on row 2. Then it's Axelson and Isaac Smith should be there on the third row. He's not though yet, is he? So he may be starting from the pit lane as we prepare for the red lights. Round number 1 of the championship. 20 minutes of racing here around the Oulton Park International Circuit. The revs starting to rise. The red lights go out. now, and we are away and racing. It's a good start from the outside of row 1 from Brennan. He might be slightly faster than the pole sitter, and they will go door to door into Old Hall Corner for the first time. The inside line for Smith is going to prevail though, and he hangs on, but here comes Brennan. He's on the grass trying to make it work on the outside, and they're side by side towards Cascades.
Yeah, McIntyre's lost out, but I think Smith may well lose out as they go down Cascades. It's going to still be Smith just ahead of Brennan, but only just great racing respect for the two of them there. But going through the fast left-hander down towards Shell Hairpin is going to be very treacherous, and they do actually go single file, but not all the drivers do, as we see Axelson and McIntyre getting their elbows out.
Yeah, McIntyre got into the side of Keithley at Cascades, had a big slide off his Robin Walters. He'll rejoin at the back of the pack, hopefully without damage. But that moment that McIntyre had, he saved it. It really delayed him, though. You can see the way the top three have pulled away, and that is why Eric Axelson was alongside McIntyre. McIntyre hangs on to 4th place, though. You can see Zanatachi's back into the silver class lead now, with Dave Buki in 2nd. So that's had a bit of a shuffle around, as here, the challenge is on. That is Lewis Brown up the inside and into the top 5.
Pretty textbook there into Knickerbrook, wasn't it? It's from Lewis Brown going ahead of Axelson. Nicky Taylor, now here's a driver that's always entertaining to watch, and that's a bit of a pile-up though, unfortunately. Andy Carroll's involved with that. Bolton, Presthorpe, maybe Felvis as well. So a fair few drivers towards the rear end of the field just ended up obviously getting a bit sideways. Speaking of sideways, Dave Newsham and Eric Axelson very sideways through. I believe that's Druid, Andy.
Oh, what an up and down opening lap Axelson's had, challenging for 4th halfway round the lap, and now on the grass at Druids. Newsham got away with that far, far better, and actually has gained a few positions. Dave Newsham started 9th. He is 6th at the end of the opening lap. An opening lap that is led, though, by the pole sitter, Jack Smith, and Jordan Brennan, nearly 4 tenths behind him. Keithley 3rd, McIntyre catching him up again in 4th. And Lewis Brown with that good move into the top 5. Into the pit lane comes Kyle Felvis. Now, he was involved in that collision at the chicane and must have some damage.
Yeah, that's gutting, because Carl Felvis, he was pretty much in the pit lane for all of Tuesday's action as well in the MX5 Cup. So, obviously, I think Tuesday was a little bit of a glitch, and it wasn't his fault. But obviously, I'm not saying it's his fault this time round, but it seems to be of a racing incident and racing damage, which is obviously just as disappointing, really, for him. He'll be back out in race number 2, hopefully, and coming on strong. He's a very talented young kid, is Carl Felvis. He's only 14. The fact that he can shake it up there with these guys is very impressive, I'd say.
Tom O'Farrell is suggesting to us that was a typical touring car season start. I don't know what he's on about. They're known for really clean driving, usually, touring car drivers. I have to say, actually, given how tight the track is, we kind of alluded to it. We expected a few fisticuffs on the opening lap. At least the leaders, by and large, managed to avoid it. So we've got some of our early, maybe pre-season favourites that are engaging in a genuine battle at the front. They're pairing off slightly, Smith and Brennan gapping Keithley and McIntyre. Keithley, I would say, Jack, is struggling a little here. McIntyre has caught him quite quickly.
Yeah, I think Smith and Brennan are playing it smart, to be honest, and not falling over each other, whereas the 3rd and 4th place drivers probably both feel like they deserve to be the one trying to chase the 2 leaders. And that means you can fall over each other and end up just being gapped by the 2 leaders, which is essentially what we're seeing here, is McIntyre's crawling all over the back of Keithley. Couldn't get that undercut. Look at how aggressive Keithley is having to be on the right-hand side of the track now as they go defensive into the first corner, and I think it's still going to be Keithley just ahead of McIntyre unless he can get that massive cutback, which I think he's just about managed to do.
Yeah, side by side down the avenue, but now we're about to turn left at the bottom of the hill. Doesn't matter. McIntyre hops over the curb and goes through. That was brilliant driving. Keithley's a bit wayward at Cascades as he tries to fight back, and Jack McIntyre goes 3rd. I was about to say it was important that he got on with that because of the way the top 2 are pulling clear here. McIntyre was no doubt getting held up a bit by Keithley. He will want to chase after the top 2, just in case they do start to fight ahead. That would delay them. It might bring him back into the fight. Either way, though, that was a brilliant bit of driving. He set him up beautifully with the switchback manoeuvre, and then it takes some guts to run side by side through that kink at the top of the hill. Dave Newsham is off. No, it's not Dave Newsham, excuse me. Joel Laskin, another one of the white and red cars, is off, and that is a shame for him, but what a move by McIntyre.
Yeah, and that's a typical Oulton Park move, isn't it, really? You have to set it up at least half a lap in advance. Here comes Dave Newsham, but specifically we're actually looking at Nicky Taylor as he chases down the XBTCC drivers. So it's going to be interesting to see how Taylor sort of suits himself up with this one, whether he gets a little bit starstruck or whether he does his typical Nicky Taylor thing and just throws everything at it and see what sticks. Isaac Smith has just about entered the race. He's a lap down and actually is about to be lapped by the leaders. So hopefully he'll either just peel into the pits and let everyone go past, or he'll just stop basically on the circuit somewhere very safe and let everyone through, because he is about to be overtaken by pretty much the entire field. This is looking at further back as well. Andy Carroll and Eric Boulton. Andy Carroll, again, actually, no, sorry. Andy Carroll is, yeah, it is Boulton. He's trying to fight ahead. I was just trying to focus on who we're actually focusing on there. But two very bright cars. Simon Thorpe in the SmartFire car just ahead of these guys, trying to pull away.
Yeah, this is 5th, 6th and 7th, I believe, within the silver class. So this is for valuable points, and a reminder that it's your finishing position within your class that matters when it comes to point scoring. So every position does count. It's 15 points for a win, 12 for second, 10 for third, and then the increments between each position get less and less as you go down the order. So important that you try and score well. There is the man who is second in the silver class, and this is one of those situations that we touched upon in qualifying. Dave Buki is a silver driver. Rich Hayden ahead of him is a gold driver, but Buki looks quicker and needs to get past Hayden if he's to have any chance of chasing down his class leader.
Yeah, and realistically, the driver behind Buki, Axelson, deserves to be around the top 5 in terms of pace and qualifying. We've seen that. So what does Buki do now? If he lets Axelson go, but then Rich doesn't, he could end up in a fight that he really doesn't need to be in. If he sort of fights and tries to get past Rich, he could end up taking both of each other off, and that's not ideal either, because obviously he won't finish in second place. Second is better than nothing. His Lask is looking the wrong way on the chicane. A couple of drivers doing well to avoid him. Kenny Press actually was the driver who we saw just go past. But yeah, very, very difficult situation for the drivers there. But Keithley hasn't been dropped, actually, Andy. This is quite impressive, isn't it? Because McIntyre, we got the sense that he was quicker, and once he got through, he'd pull away. But Keithley keeping with him now, not to be unexpected, but still quite impressive.
It's sometimes the way, though, isn't it? A car is all over the back of you, you think they're way quicker than you, and as soon as they get through, you can learn from them, follow their lines, you can follow their braking points. Maybe that's what he's doing. Here's that battle further back. Dave Buki trying to get the overlap on the inside of Rich Hayden. Might have it into Old Hall Corner. Well, he did, but there was a bit of a shoulder barge. Hayden ends up in the weeds, and here comes Axelson with the run on the pair of them. Buki goes 9th. Axelson tries to get past Hayden. That is for position within the gold class, and that maybe is why Rich Hayden is going to really stand his ground, holds the inside line. A bit more paint is traded, and Axelson, who will be getting frustrated at this, I think, given the pace that he's shown already tonight, still can't get through.
Yeah, it's sort of a theme of what we've seen in Axelson's driving. It almost looked like it was him down to a T as he was trying to make the move on Rich by just basically following Buki through. And he just likes to take that sort of slight back seat, see what plays out in front of him, try and take advantage. But then maybe, I don't know, it's hard to say that he could have been a bit more aggressive on Rich. But Rich Hayden was basically very aggressive in trying to return back to his original position. So, yeah, very interesting to see how that one develops and whether Axelson is able to get through, because he's got 12 minutes left. If he does, there's every chance that he can try and catch up to the back of Zanatachi, and then you're on the back of Nicky Taylor, who obviously is the next gold driver for Axelson to attack. Unfortunately for Axelson, he's got 2 silvers in the way of him as well, in the form of Buki and Zanatachi. It won't really matter whether he gets through them or not, as Boulton goes through on Andy Carroll. That is for a change of position in the silver category, so that is for all the points.
Yes, it is, and that was 6th place within the class, and now Boulton will chase on after his teammate Thorpe, who is just up the road. You can see there the 2 similarly liveried cars. That is, of course, if he can break clear of Carroll, who is going to try and come back at him, I'm sure. Druids isn't really an overtaking opportunity, although when the car in front gets sideways, it might be. Certainly that will slow Boulton down on the exit. Here comes Carroll looking to the inside. I think he's got the overlap. He's got the inside line for Lodge Corner. It's the best place to overtake on the track, and Andy Carroll knows it. He slips through on the inside. Then he is slower on the exit of the corner, so Boulton comes back at him. Can't quite get to the inside. This is really good racing, though. Respectful so far, touch wood, and they're finding places to overtake around here, which, you know, in the real world you'd see it done, but we know how difficult it can be.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to see as I'll go away from my point for a second, because Axelson's sticking one up the inside of Rich Hayden, who tried to hang it around the outside. Ill-advised, I say, through the fast left going towards Shell, but Hayden tried it. It didn't come off. Axelson, predictably, probably goes through and is now setting his sights further forward, as well as we focus back on the top two, specifically Jordan Brennan. He's got Smith ahead of him in the SmartFi car, and as I said before, I think that's Isaac Smith, who is a back marker, will be shown the blue flags, I'm sure. He'll be getting that communicated to him by Dave Marshall, the race director. Fingers crossed that he listens to them and jumps out the way, because these two, the last thing that Jack Smith needs is to be held up by a back marker with 10 minutes to go. We're not even, well, we're just about halfway on this race. And the top two have worked hard to get the space away from McIntyre that they deserve.
Yeah, I reckon that gap was just creeping down between Smith and Brennan until Brennan ran wide at Lodge Corner, but it was down to about 7/10. It was hovering around 8 the last time I checked, despite running wide actually. It is a new fastest lap look for Brennan, so Brennan closing in there, and he was a full 10th faster than Jack Smith on that lap. Now, we haven't really mentioned this, but it's a 20-minute race around a track that can be quite punishing for tyres, so Jack Smith went off like a rocket at the start, but might he live to regret that in the second half of the race?
Yeah, well, that may be what we're seeing a little bit now. And these drivers are obviously very good at keeping hold of their tyres. As Isaac Smith does jump out of the way there, very well done and a really good part of the track as well. Keep in mind that Smith is... Isaac Smith, I should say, is a very quick driver, so he's not going to exactly be 2 or 3 seconds off the pace and getting in the way. He should be able to manage that gap properly. As we see Martin Johnson, flying off the outside of Cascades, and like you mentioned there, Andy, I think maybe, especially those right side tyres, those left side tyres at Oulton Park, just starting to go away from a few drivers, especially the rears. It's difficult to keep them at peak temperature and peak optimum condition, as well as Carl Felvis obviously was in the pit lane earlier on, getting past last.
Yeah, these are all front-wheel drive Cupra TCR cars, as that is Simon Thorpe off. That is the Shell hairpin, and that is, well, he's going to carry on, but it looked as though he'd made pretty substantial contact with the barriers. Kenny presses the car that closes in behind, and those are both silver drivers, but Thorpe, of course, was ahead of Carroll and Bolton, wasn't he? He was in 15th place. Not sure exactly how he got there, but yes, he continues on his way. Front-wheel drive cars these then, so it is that front left tyre that will take the beating here at Oulton Park. They are, though, all the same car, and also, Jack, it's a fixed setup championship, which I love. There is very little you can do to tweak the way these cars handle, and that makes it about the driver's ability.
Yeah, it's very important when you're hosting real-life drivers, sort of lower-end sim racers, high-end sim racers, that you try and make it as even as possible. And basically all these drivers can do is change specifically what you would be able to change if you just sat in the real-life car and you could see all the buttons around you. So I was going to call it brake distribution, but whether it's front and back bias on the brakes and a few little bits and bobs like that, a bit of traction control, that's all they can really change. They can't change ride height, they can't change dampers or tyre pressures or anything like that. So it is, as you mentioned, all down to the drivers, which is very important. A lot of drivers are very quick, but they can't set a car up, and a lot of people spend hours and hours setting a car up to be absolutely perfect. It's a skill, it's a knack, it's a knowledge that you just have to spend, as I mentioned, hours practicing. Some people don't have that, therefore fixed setup is always a bit more fair.
I would certainly put myself in that category of not having that ability to set a car up, so this would suit me right down to the ground. Some would debate whether I've got the ability to drive it either, but certainly this levels the playing field, and that is exactly what we like to see. Here is Kenny Press. He's quite liking what he's seeing as well, because, he was catching Thorpe ahead after his moment, but curse of the commentator there, and Kenny finds himself in the weeds as well, coming out of the Shell hairpin, so the gap back out over 1 second. That gap goes out, the lead gap coming down again, Brennan continuing to close in on Jack Smith, as here we check back in with Eric Axelsen, still on the tail of Dave Buki, so he hasn't been able to find a way past the man who is second place in the silver class yet. Impressive pace this from Dave.
Yeah, but Eric was about 1.5 seconds back from Dave Buki when he got past Rich Hayden. As Buki looks maybe to just make 1 or 2 little mistakes, he doesn't seem to be able to catch Paul Zanatachi. He's probably quite happy with second place. As we mentioned before, last time that Axelsen actually came up behind Buki, it wouldn't be the end of the world this time if Dave just let Eric pass. Before there was a battle with Rich Hayden and he wants to get through, see if he can catch Paul and all that sort of thing. But realistically, if I was Dave Buki now and I saw a driver with the speed and the credentials of Eric Axelsen coming up behind me, I'd just think, you know what, let's just let him go past, maybe pick up a tip or two as well. You mentioned it earlier, Andy. As soon as a driver goes past, you can start learning from them, see where they brake, how hard they brake, when they come off the brake, and all that sort of thing. And, throttle application can all be learned just by following a driver for half a lap or a lap and a half if you can manage it. So, in my opinion, that's what Dave Buki should be doing. But clearly, he's not listening to the stream because he's going full on.
Which is the Dave Buki way, and we love him for it. But Axelsen is going to get the run here over Hilltop, pulls to the outside because Buki has the inside line covered. It's very difficult to make this move around the outside work, though, and Axelsen has to bail out of it. If I were Dave Buki, to be honest, I'd be letting Axelsen through, and then I would be waiting and letting Rich Hayden and Walters through as well, because he could afford to finish behind that group and still score second place points within silver. Then we've got this full grid reversal for race number 2. The further back in this race that you finish, the further up the order you will start the next race. So, again, I don't think that's at all in Dave Buki's nature to start pulling over and waving people through. But, I don't know, that might be an option perhaps for some other people at some point over the course of the season to try and buy themselves some race 2 track position.
Tell you what, that's a spin for Carl Felvis, unfortunately, really not going his way tonight. But I tell you what, it's clear that you're leading a championship on a Tuesday night, that, Andy, because I was thinking when you were saying, just let Rich and let Robin through, I was like, why on earth would you do that? That sounds stupid, that sounds insane. But as soon as you put the reverse grid spin on it, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it could be a viable strategy. One that, as you mentioned before, though, Dave probably isn't going to be taking. Joel Lask spins through Knickerbrook. That looked like a bit of a heavy contact with the tyres as well, which, of course, don't move in the sim world. It might as well be a concrete wall. And that is Isaac Smith. Bit of a torrid time for him qualifying. He didn't set a lap time. He came into the race late. Looks like he's leaving it early. Not entirely sure what's going on there, but it looks like Simon Thorpe pushing the limits of Old Hall. And Kenny Press trying to follow and do his best. But we're now focusing on the top 2.
We are, because they're closer than they've been since the first corner, really. Jordan Brennan continuing just to lap a fraction quicker than Isaac Smith. The trouble is he's running out of time. 3.5 minutes to go. These 20 minutes have absolutely flown by here, and Jack Smith has certainly been managing this race pretty well. He's been under pressure. He may have led it from the very start until this point, but at no point has he been able to relax and take things easy, because Jordan Brennan, you can see him there, has always been within a second or so. Uses a little bit of the grass coming out of Lodge Corner, but there seems to be some traction out there. He's done that a few times and still carries good speed over Deer Lead. 3 minutes to go then. I reckon 2 more laps left in this race, and Jack Smith just needs to not make any mistakes, and I think he should have Brennan covered.
I'm just amazed, to be honest. I've never seen Jack McIntyre be gapped by anyone at the sound of 4.5 seconds, at the tune of 4.5 seconds. It's quite incredible margin that these two are pulling over. But as we focus again to that top 10 battle, essentially, even though it's obviously it's an inter-battle battle, shall we say. Axelsen against Buki. Buki's still not giving up the ghost, is he? We don't know if he's actually aware that Axelsen's in the right class, or sorry, in his class or not. You would have thought that they'd look at the driving list beforehand, but realistically, Andy, when you're in the moment, you just want to get out there. You want to race, and if they end up like this, or even if Axelsen gets through, they'll both come off with a smile on that. Well, Axelsen might not, and Dave Buki might not if he runs a little bit wide through Shell Hairpin, but I imagine Dave will be enjoying this one, put it that way.
Dave is a fighter. He enjoys getting his elbows out on track. He enjoys getting stuck in, and he's not been a runner-up in the Civic Cup for nothing. He is a very, very good driver, is Dave Buki, and a good engineer as well. The busiest man in motorsport, I think. Every time I speak to him, he seems to be up to his elbows in oil, or covered in dirt from working on one of his many racing cars. But right now he's working on his own race results as he tries to hang on to this 9th place, and at the moment succeeds in doing so. Axelsen has been on his tail for a while now and hasn't yet been able to breach through the defences. About though to start the final lap of the race. This is sometimes where desperation can set in. Axelsen, though, I'm sure will have his championship head on here as well, because he knows he doesn't have to overtake Buki. It won't score him any extra championship points. It's probably not worth the risk.
Yeah, he's got no chance of catching up to Nicky Taylor, has he, realistically, even if he does overtake Dave. So we were saying that it's not really worth Dave staying in front. He might as well let him pass, but realistically, it's not worth Eric getting past him either. So it's a bit of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but these two look like they're very interested in getting past each other. It's Kenny Press looking up the inside of Druid on Simon Thorpe, and he's still there, actually. He's scared him out of it, to be fair. I think Simon Thorpe saw Kenny Press's car and thought, you know what, I'm just going to miss this apex, just in case. Going down towards the last corner, an overtaking opportunity in some people's eyes, but not for Kenny Press this time round. He's certainly putting the pressure on Simon Thorpe towards the latter end of this race. But to be honest, they've been putting the pressure on throughout the entirety of this race, these two drivers.
They really have, haven't they? And the pressure tells maybe, because Thorpe is so far off the road. I think he's buying a hot dog from the fast food stand on the outside of Old Hall Corner. Robin Walters is pointing the wrong way as well at the Shell hairpin. Gets those very brightly coloured wheels pointing back in the right direction again and gets on his way. These are the race leaders, and it does look as though Jack Smith is going to hang on here. He was a bit concerned about the start of the race. He wasn't off the line quite as quick as Brennan was, but he has been able to hold on to the advantage all the way until the final corner. A final corner that he exits now. Absolutely inch-perfect drive this from Jack Smith, and he is your maiden race winner in the Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy powered by VRRC. Race 1 at Oulton Park goes to the pole sitter with Brennan second. Jack McIntyre gets the better of Jack Keithley in their little battle for the final step of the podium places, whilst Lewis Brown gets a solid top 5 finishing position, having started 7th. Dave Newsham goes from 9th to 6th by the flag, ahead of Taylor, Panatachi, and will it be Dave Buki in 9th? Yes, it will. Only just Panatachi is the silver winner, Buki second, and it looks as though Mick Sutton will get the 3rd place finish in that class. Jack, a fantastic opening race of the season.
Yeah, looking forward to having a chat to our podium sitters, but obviously we'll give the good courtesy of letting everybody finish their respected race, because there was good racing up and down, to be honest, wasn't there, Andy? It was close right at the front with the top two. Obviously, McIntyre, Keithley early on was a very sort of frantic battle. But then even the likes of, as you mentioned before, Preston, Thorpe, and Carroll, Walters, Buki as well, and Axelson. It was a little bit of everything all up and down. So hopefully everybody's come off with a smile on their face. Hopefully they're all looking forward to race 2, because the easy stuff, the easy job is done now. Race 2, full reverse grid. That's when it starts to heat up.
Yeah, it does. That was a pretty lively start to the night. It's set to get even more lively. We'll give the drivers a moment or two to catch their breaths. We'll give ourselves a moment or two to catch our breaths as well. We'll be back after this very short break with all the reaction from race number 1. The opening race of the Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy powered by VRRC is in the books here from Oulton Park, and it was just as entertaining as we hoped and, let's be honest, expected it to be. We've got our podium finishers with us here in the commentary box. We'll start by having a chat with our race winner, Jack Smith. Well, Jack, we spoke to you before the race. You were a little concerned about the start, and you very nearly lost the lead, but just about were able to hang on. That was close.
Yeah, incredibly close. And one mistake out that whole race and Jordan would have been right with me. So that is probably the hardest race of my life, even though it might not have looked it, but it was so imperative to not make a mistake in that race. And, you know, props to Jordan, because he didn't make a mistake either. We both were within a second the whole race. So it's just amazing, really.
Yeah, high intensity. Like you say, you couldn't afford a mistake. At least you were at a nice, easy racetrack where you're never likely to make a mistake here at Oulton Park, are you? Not.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah. Definitely a roller coaster here, so a mistake was bound to happen at some point, but not in race 1.
Race 2 is likely to be even busier, though, isn't it, with this reverse grid? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is. We'll just pick them off one at a time and see how far we can get through. Obviously, avoiding incidents will be key at the start, so yeah, we'll see what happens.
Excellent. Well, Jack, huge congratulations on the race 1 win. Best of luck for race 2.
Cheers, thank you.
Jack Smith then our race winner, and Jack Oliphant has our runner-up, I believe.
Yeah, Jordan Brennan, how are you doing? That one looked a little bit A little bit tough to take, but equally, he showed fantastic pace, and you would have been right on him, as Jack said, if he'd made a mistake.
Yeah, fair play to Jack in that one. I thought I almost had him on the start, and then he just hung it around the outside, so fair play to them on that. But yeah, as you were saying, one mistake, and then the race had gone the other way, so it was one of those. I just tried as hard as I could, and he was just too quick for me.
How far into that race did you start to think, okay, I'll sort of take second place, it's good enough for me, we'll obviously push on in race 2?
I was pushing all the way through then.
Oh, fair play.
I was going for the win, but yeah, it didn't happen. But yeah, this reverse grid is going to be rather difficult, I think. So it's just going to be heads down and avoid all the incidents.
Well, you've answered my next question for me already, Jordan. Good luck in race number 2, and hopefully we'll be having a chat to you afterwards.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent stuff. Well, third place, a little way adrift of the top 2, but having enjoyed an entertaining battle of his own. Another Jack, it's Chat McIntyre, and you and Jack Keithley were absolutely level pegging for most of that race. Talk us through the side-by-side exchange you had in the early part of the race.
Yeah, it was a good race. It was, I think, probably tough but fair. I was up the inside through turn 2 on the first lap, and Jack kept his car there, and we both got through, to be fair, so that's fine. And then, yeah, managed to get a little cutback either a lap or 2 later, and yeah, the pace is so equal. I really burnt through my tyres towards the end, so I was struggling to stay ahead, which I think he pulled back a second or so in the last lap or 2, but yeah, I managed to keep it there, and like the others have said, the reverse grid is going to be the one where the points are gained, so let's see how that goes.
If you burnt through your tyres in the first few laps of that race, I dread to think what they'll be like halfway through this next one, because you have no choice but to push on from the start here.
Yeah, true. I can make a few small changes to try and get some life back into them, but yeah, I think it's probably going to be a bit of a change to my driving style more than anything. So yeah, see what I can do.
Well, best of luck for that one, Jack. We'll let you get on and prepare whilst Jack Oliphant chats to our silver class winner.
Yeah, very quickly, Paul, congratulations on that win. We'll be honest, we didn't see that much of it. It seemed a pretty standard race for you, almost like hot lapping out there.
Yeah, I had a bit of a tough start, I think. I got a bit swamped by some of the gold drivers that I think that maybe a little bit out of position for qualifying, but after that they got past and just settled into a rhythm. I think Rich behind got in a bit of a battle with Dave Bucky, and I think that just gave me a little bit of breathing room, and yeah, I put the laps in and everything was okay.
Well, good stuff. I'm sorry to make it so quick, but we've only got 45 seconds until race 2, and you need to get your head in gear as well as we do. So congrats, Paul, on that race victory. Maybe we'll be speaking to you later.
Cheers, thank you.
Excellent stuff. Just like that then, they're all back on the grid ready for another 20-minute race. And, well, Isaac Smith, who's had absolutely no luck. We believe he's been struggling with some power cuts tonight, hence why he's been sort of connecting and disconnecting again, has managed to get pole position because it is a full grid reversal. So Smith, Brennan and McIntyre, the top 3 from the last race, are 21st, 20th and 20th respectively on the grid for round number 2 of the Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy, powered by VRRC. We're just about 10 seconds away from getting this second and final race of the night underway, and amazingly we still end up with 2 gold class drivers on the front row. Smith on the left, Felvis on the right. The lights go out. We're away and racing once more. Very even start there across all of the top 2 or 3 rows really. No one making a massive gain on anybody else. It's Smith that will lead them through Old Hall Corner for the first time, but runs wide onto the grass. Felvis is alongside him. Once again, they're door to door towards Cascades. And who is going to get the lead halfway through the first lap? They're wheel to wheel. Smith on the inside, but round the outside goes Felvis. What a move!
Yeah, we've come to sort of expect that of Carl Felvis. He's a real battler, and obviously he hasn't had the luck so far, but we've seen Rich Hayden try and stick it around the outside of the fast left before. It didn't go his way, but he's just about held on to it. Fantastic by Carl Felvis. Isaac Smith goes for the dive into Shell Hairpin and gets the move done. I mean, maybe you can see that coming, but fair play to Carl Felvis for even holding on to the car on the track. I've seen so many times people fall off there, as Rich Hayden fell off there earlier on in race number 1. He seems to have fallen off there on the inside of Shell Hairpin in race number 2 early on. This is Mick Sutton. Again, we're starting to see these pretty much last place of the silver drivers, but actually, Paul Zanatechi is almost dead last place in 20th. Dave Buki in 21st as well. That's huge for the silver category.
Yeah, they've obviously been involved in something on the opening lap then, so that is big for the early championship standings. Remember, it's only a 12-race championship, this, and that is Jordan Brennan.
Oh,
Jordan
huge.
Brennan off at the chicane. Speaking of huge championship implications, he rejoins alongside Dave Bookie. This was always the peril of the reversed grid race, especially around somewhere like Oulton Park. It is so tight, it is so narrow, it is so easy to end up tripping over someone, and the points you lose here today, Jack, you could really live to regret come the end of February.
Yeah, it's so easy to do around Oulton Park. It's easy to chuck yourself off, let alone if you're trying to fight with a load of other cars who maybe aren't quite up to pace that you are, or maybe they're faster than you are, and you sort of want to keep out the way, but in doing so, you almost get in the way more. Mick Sutton and Dave Newsham swapping positions into T1. Dave Newsham trying to slip on through past the silver driver, and I think he's just about managed it. That's Simon Thorpe flying off the circuit, not rejoining unsafely, to be fair, so well done to Simon Thorpe. Not sure if it was any kind of control that he didn't manage to control, come back on the circuit, but Martin Johnson drifts through Cascades as well and runs wide. I think that could be a little bit of an implication as they go 3 wide down in towards the back left. Andy, this can't end well.
Oh, surely it won't. No, off goes Dave Newsham, who has nothing to do with that, and somehow he's still the one that ends up on the grass. There are cars everywhere. Joel Lask is off. Joel Lask was leading the silver class at the end of the first lap, but he isn't anymore. Lewis Brown is off the road as well. Well, let's be honest, we can't have expected this with the reverse grid race. It is absolute chaos out on track right now. Isaac Smith leads from Felver second. Kenny Press is third, ahead of Bolton and Johnson, who just made a peach of a move up the inside of Jack Keithley, of all people, at Cascades, which sort of triggered that whole 3-wide moment. Another car off the road, that's Keithley. The Williams Esports driver is off, he rejoins, gets turned around, and Jack Keithley is off and into the barriers. It is all kicking off in race 2.
Yeah, Keithley basically goes so far off, he's hitting into the commentator's booth, and he comes back on and ends the race for Jordan Brennan, and Paul Zadatechi's involved with that as well. And as Simon Thorpe, Lewis Brown, my goodness, that's huge. I mean, we talk about implications. I think if anybody has tuned in for the last 2 minutes, wondering what on earth is going on, it's definitely not GT racing they've tuned into, is it? It is all touring car action. Rich Hayden and Dave Newsham have swapped positions as well. But just to run down the order a little bit as we catch our breath, it still is Isaac Smith leading the way from Carl Felvers, then Kenny Press, Eric Bolton, Martin Johnson, Jack McIntyre, Mick Sutton, Eric Axelson, Jack Smith, and Nicky Taylor are your top 10. Axelson has just overtaken Mick Sutton, so that could be a change from what I said earlier on. But a huge fight and huge moments already in this second race of the championship. You don't know where to look, to be honest. Tom O'Farrell's doing a brilliant job on the broadcast.
He really is, I have to say, because there are, at any given moment, about 6 or 7 different things happening, and they're all quite important, because we've got the drivers that did well in their respective classes in the first race, all seemingly finding trouble in race 2. The exceptions, at least in the gold class, well, there is one of them. Jack McIntyre, he is 6th overall, 3rd in class though, and he will feel good about his chances of getting past these silver drivers. He elbows his way up the inside of Johnson. That was a good, forceful touring car move, but 3rd in class is going well for him at the moment. And Jack Smith, 6th in class, not making quite the same progress. And that is Kyle Felvers, who was 2nd overall and in the gold class, and he's off at the Hislop chicane.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate, isn't it? Carl ended up having a terrible race 1. Seems to not be going his way in race number 2 as well. He's trying to rejoin without causing too many incidents, but by the looks of it, you can't cut through on this version of Oulton Park. Otherwise, that would be much safer, wouldn't it? He's having to come back on the track just to avoid everybody else, so he managed to do so. As we're now looking at Axelson fight Martin Johnson for top 5 positions. Smith goes through on Mick Sutton, so Smith starting to charge forward. Isaac Smith, of course, is leading the way. This is Jack Smith as Mick Sutton, again, in the middle of sort of a plethora of gold drivers, not really worrying too much whether he gets overtaken, but wants to stay with them.
Yeah, Jack Keithley here wants to get past Rich Hayden. It looks like he'll do it. There's another car off. That was Andy Carroll pointing the wrong way out of Lodge Corner. Isaac Smith leads the way then. 2nd, Kenny Press. They are both their respective class leaders, but don't forget that Isaac Smith is subbing for Rob Butler. He only scored half point. So Jack McIntyre at the moment is quids in. He's 2nd in class, but would be the top point scorer from this race as things stand. And he's got a silver graded driver between himself and Eric Axelson at the moment. Rich Hayden has indeed fallen behind Jack Keithley, who is now up into 11th place overall, 7th in class.
I think if you were out there as a driver, you'd be trying to do all these calculations in your head. I would just be giving it up, to be honest. Just race who's around you and try and push forward as much as you can. As you said, that whole Isaac Smith and Rob Butler style scenario, I mean, maybe Jack McIntyre, he's good enough probably to process that at the same time as trying to fight through these silver drivers. But realistically, if I was him, I'd just be trying to focus on getting past these drivers. And that's exactly what he's doing. He slides his way through an Eric Bolton, who, by the looks of it, didn't really fight that hard. But to be fair, we didn't see it early enough to see whether he did put up any kind of fight. Jack McIntyre into third overall. Kenny Press will know full well he's not got the pace of Jack Mack. So it's likely that we'll see Kenny maybe slightly move over as soon as that sort of happens, because he doesn't want to be caught by Eric Bolton, who will now be being pulled along by Jack Mack.
Jack McIntyre, may I remind you, started this race 19th. We are 9 minutes in, and he's third. That is insane. I don't think he can catch Isaac Smith out in front, but a double podium, I think he'd take that for the start of his season, wouldn't he? Very important to score good points here at the opening round of the championship. Eric Axelsen on the attack, looking to the inside of Johnson. This is Andy Carroll, the inside of Kyle Felvers, who of course was leading briefly on the opening lap, but after that off down at the chicane is a little bit further down the order, trying to hang on here to 15th place, and I think he's going to lose it. He could lose another as well, because Jordan Brennan is coming through, and Brennan is arguably the quicker of these three. He gets past Felvers, that's worth some class championship points, and now sets off after Carroll.
I don't think there's any arguably about it. I think Jordan Brennan is quicker than 95% of this grid. There's only one that he's not. That's clearly shown by qualifying. Axelsen gets a little nudge through that quick left-hander. We've seen so many people come unstuck by it, and he ends up slipping down all the way to 11th position. It may well get worse for him, actually, because Rich Hayden flies around the outside of him and demotes him all the way down to 12th. Buki gets past, that's into 13th now. So Axelsen, again, having a really torrid race 1 and 2, and I think a lot of drivers will be leaving Oulton Park wishing that it never happened.
Yeah, this was always going to be a bruising couple of races, especially because it's the season opener. Everyone's sort of getting used to each other. Mick Sutton is on the grass, rejoins, and Dave Newsham does really well to avoid him, actually. Wasn't Newsham off on the first lap of the race as well? He's done well to recover to 8th position, and then Jack Keighley behind the pair of them. So this is a big battle here. Newsham trying to go through into 8th place. Looks like he'll do it, but Keighley could do with following him through. He's got the inside line for Druid's Corner. He commits to the inside line, and it looks like Keighley is going to get it, yes, because out wide goes Mick Sutton. He's on the grass, and there just isn't the grip out there. So Newsham goes 8th, Keighley goes 9th. That is 5th and 6th in the gold class.
Yeah, and the battle's not done, really, is it? There's a huge look up the inside by Buki, and I don't know how neither of them didn't hit Mick Sutton. I mean, they have ended up hitting each other at the moment, but that was huge going into the corner. You just wouldn't expect the incident to be on the exit of the corner. They did very well to begin with, not making any contact, but then it just looked like maybe it just pincered in too much. They didn't expect the other drivers to be there, which is, I mean, in hindsight, probably something they should have expected, because it's a very narrow circuit, is Oulton Park, and they're all going for the same bit of track.
Didn't your brother have an incident at Lodge Court that started on the entry and ended on the exit earlier last year?
Yeah, we won't mention Jason Plato's name. Oh, whoops! Oh, what a mistake I've made.
Anyway, third place battle here, moving swiftly on. Jack McIntyre with Eric Bolton. Second place battle, excuse me. He's caught Kenny Press already. So this is Kenny Press in second place. Now, I know that, and I agree that for the most part, drivers won't be making too many calculations in their head right now, but is this a fight worth having for Kenny? I know he's a feisty driver, but he's on course for the class win, and I don't think he made life too hard there for Jack McIntyre. That was sensible.
Yeah, but that doesn't look too sensible. Carl Felvers in the wall yet again, unfortunately. It really hasn't been his championship so far. Hopefully, he'll go to a few other tracks and where he can pick it up a little bit, because you never like to see a driver have that many hits, and hopefully he won't stay down, put it that way. Jack Smith is a driver that we haven't mentioned too much, Andy, so far in this race, but we mentioned Jack Max on for the double podium. Well, Jack Smith is potentially on for a double podium. He's got 10 minutes left, essentially, to catch up to Kenny Press. And considering he polled it, I wouldn't put it past him.
No, most definitely. He's got the raw pace, hasn't he? And actually has recovered quite well here. He was several positions behind Jack McIntyre early in the race. He's only 2 places behind him now, 1 place within class. So at the moment, McIntyre would be on for 12 championship points, Jack Smith on for 10. So rough calculations would put Jack Smith a point or so ahead in the championship, leaving Oulton Park. Further back, meanwhile, this is the fight for 4th. In the gold class, 6th place overall. Johnson, a silver driver, Taylor right behind him, and Dave Newsham and Jack Keighley. The red, white and black car behind is Newsham, the white and blue is Keighley. They are catching this group rapidly.
Yeah, and it starts to get complicated, really, when you try and dissect what's going on here, because Martin Johnson has Eric Boulton ahead of him, which they've all caught up, so it's a battle for silver, and that's Newsham ending it early, though, because he flies up the inside and straight into Martin Johnson. I was about to break it down in a very complicated fashion, but Newsham just ended that sentence, ended that statement very early, and he just ended up flying up the inside and hitting everyone off. Well, hitting Johnson off anyway.
Dear, dear, dear. Right, Dave Newsham proving there his touring car experience, I think, muscling his way through. Also a pretty handy one-make tin top race, wasn't he, before that in Renault Clio Cup. Eric Axelsen, haven't seen much of him in this race, but he's up the inside of Mick Sutton here and trying to take 10th place away. No trying about it. He makes it stick with a nice move at the Hislop chicane. That puts him into that top 10 overall. His next target will be Johnson, recovering from that off up at the Shell hairpin. Right, 8 minutes to go. We're about 2/3 of the way through the race. Isaac Smith quids in here for the race victory. You'd have to say he is only 12 seconds up the road from Jack McIntyre in second place, because of course Isaac started on the front row. Jack started pretty much on the back row of the grid. Kenny Press in third leads the silver class. Jack Smith is fourth. Eric Boulton fifth. Taylor sixth. There is Dave Newsham seventh. And Jack Keithley eighth. This is where the action is, isn't it, really, from 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th places.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard enough having about 17 Jacks on the starting lineup as well, isn't it? But now we've got 2 Smiths on the podium as well, by the looks of it. Well, not quite yet. Kenny Press is doing a fantastic job, it has to be said. But it's still going to be quite confusing, I imagine. But you're right, this is where the battle is. Obviously, we saw it end slightly earlier before, but it's not really finished there and then. I thought, to be honest, that was going to be it. This battle was going to be over when we saw the contact between Newsham and Johnson. But as I'm saying that, it has still prematurely come to a little bit of an end, or one of the parts of it has. Nicky Taylor flies off on the outside. His car is parked. Is he going to get it back going again? We're not entirely sure. Hopefully so. Keithley versus Newsham is still one that's heating up, shall we say.
Yeah, so Newsham gains another place. I didn't see how close he was to the back of that car as they went up towards Island Bend, but either way, he's ahead of it now. Newsham in 6th place gets the big run on Eric Boulton, who was really slow out of the Britain chicane, but defending well. Again, though, Boulton, he's already second in his class. These are 2 gold-graded drivers behind. Their fight is with each other. It's not really with Boulton, but they both want to get through so that they can try and use that clean air to pull away. More carnage, and that is Zanatachi, the Race 1 silver class winner. He's tangled with Mick Sutton. More drivers piling in. Rich Hayden's involved. Andy Carroll, I think, was delayed in that as well. When a car gets spun at the Hislop chicane, it doesn't leave a lot of room for others to negotiate it, does it?
No, and we're just mentioning this one, obviously, Smith versus Press. Jack Smith goes through, race 1 winner, obviously, goes into 3rd place overall. Kenny Press still leading the silver, and probably putting in a good shout for driver of the day. It hasn't been mentioned so far, Andy, has it? But the driver of the day does get an AOC gaming keyboard, I believe. So we're going to have to think about that as we go through the last 6 minutes. I think one, obviously, a double podium, a full reverse grid one as well from McIntyre and Smith is worth mentioning. Kenny Press doing a fantastic job in this race too as well. We've had plenty of contact, so a couple of drivers from race 1 who you may be thinking of probably didn't really cover themselves in glory in race 2.
No, possibly not. But that is going to be the theme of the season, I think. It's all well and good going out and scoring big points in race 1, but it's scoring the points in race 2 that is harder. Eric Boulton is off at the Island Bend. Oh no, he's lost it. Eric Boulton from 2nd in class. And this is unfortunately exactly what I was talking about. Johnson's off as well, meanwhile. They were both in the silver category. And amazingly, they're going to come back on the road in the same order they were, with Boulton just ahead of Johnson, who still can't find his way back onto the road. But I was about to say Boulton, having gone off, would lose 2nd in class, but actually Johnson was having his own moment at the same time. And out of nowhere, Dave Buki comes through into 3rd position in the class, 10th overall. Dave Buki suddenly looks like being one of the big point scorers here in the silver class.
Yeah, he'll be pretty pleased with that one. Johnson and Boulton, I don't know if they've got damage. They need to calm down. I'm not entirely sure what it is. Maybe Oulton Park's just a bit of a sticking point for them. But they're in a good position. Kenny Press is pretty unattainable for them. They just need to, chill it out. Especially the likes of Paul Zanatachi. He's not having a good race here. There's a lot of drivers. Mick Sutton again, currently last in the silver category and in the pit. So he's not scoring any points either. So yeah, a couple of drivers just need to chill out. First round, first evening that we've got this. We obviously have 6 more weeks or 5 more weeks after this one. There's plenty of time and opportunity for picking up points, but this sort of inter-class racing that we see, the silver versus gold, whereas the whole full reverse grid added to the mix as well, it does mean that I would say probably the silver is the more volatile class. You're going to see less consistency from silver drivers coming through the field than you would do gold. That's sort of the point of it, isn't it, really? So the silver category is probably always going to be a bit closer when it comes to the end than the gold, but we'll have to wait and see.
But of course, it's those gold drivers that have to survive these second
Very
races,
true.
negotiating those inconsistent silvers, the ones that are getting their elbows out and getting involved in these really feisty battles that the golds have to negotiate. Then they will never have a week where they don't have to race the silver drivers, because these reverse grid races are going to continue to supply the drama. Isaac Smith lead, Jack McIntyre second, Jack Smith in third, with Kenny Press leading the silver class in fourth ahead of Dave Newsham and this man, Jack Keithley, who can't quite get back onto the tail of Dave Newsham. There is Kenny. Brilliant effort this. He's missing out at the moment on an outright podium, but a silver class victory will go down very nicely indeed. Where did he finish in the first race? He was well down the order, wasn't he? About 6th or 7th in class in race 1. This is a lot more like it.
It is indeed, and I've just taken 20 seconds there to have a look at the YouTube chat, actually, and a big thank you for everyone getting involved in the chat tonight. It's been absolutely brilliant. We see lots of people, the likes of Nathan Frank, Brad Smith, Ethan Hill. A lot of the Newsham nutters have come in as well and said hello, so it's nice to have you guys back. Adrian Felvis, always a keen commenter on the chat as well. So yeah, brilliant to see you guys down here supporting. Thank you very much. And in fact, actually, Ed May, former VRRC commentator, obviously a good friend of ours, Andy. Nice to see him in the chat as well.
Absolutely, and also spotted Max Hart in there as well, multiple race winner in TCR UK over the last year or so. So great to have lots of people showing an interest in this championship, which is certainly going to keep us on our toes, isn't it? Based on what we've seen here tonight, first day back at school, I think, is the best way to describe this, with drivers all keen to get their season off to the best possible start. It's not over yet, 2 minutes left to go in the race, and Jack Keithley is really going to be hunting down Dave Newsham here with some real purpose, because this is for 5th overall, but it crucially is for an extra couple of championship points within the gold category. They're both gold category drivers. Dave Newsham, who is, I think, relatively new to sim racing, he's done a little bit in the past, but really has hit it hard over the last couple of years. So too has his son Callum. That's Dave Buki, who has hit something else quite hard, I think, going into the Shell hairpin.
Yeah, that's gutting for Dave Buki. He was in a really good position to pick up an awful lot of points, and it's amazing, really. Kenny Press still leading the way, doing a fantastic job. But the other top two, two out of the top 3 in silver category are Bolton and Johnson, who I'm pretty sure we've seen hit the wall more than actually been on the tarmac over the course of this race. So the fact that they're still 2nd and 3rd in class is remarkable, really, and it shows that they have decent pace. It also shows that a lot of the other silver drivers have been falling over somewhat, and they need to sort of, as we mentioned before, chill out, maybe get some practice in. But Oulton Park is notoriously difficult, as we keep mentioning. This is Keithley versus Newsham. You mentioned Dave Newsham obviously being semi-new to sim racing, just running a little bit wide then. I've seen him do a lot of iRacing. Obviously, he's into the Assetto Corsa. His son's obviously in the TCR UK now. So sporting a very similar livery that Dave Newsham's almost throwing into the tyre wall, to be honest. Going very wide, but keeping Keithley behind him. But for how many more corners? Just to finish my point, very nice to see Dave mixing it in with the sim lot, and hopefully his son gets involved as well.
Yeah, most definitely, and it's a Cupra that Callum will be racing as well, so get used to seeing this style of car, albeit the older spec Cupra, I believe. But at the moment, it is Dave Newsham who is defending admirably here from Jack Keithley. Keithley looking around the outside at the Shell hairpin. Couple of little mistakes over the last couple of corners for Newsham, but he's not yet opened the door properly, and of course Keithley has to try and do this cleanly. He doesn't want to get involved in any contact, doesn't want to be receiving penalties, because for Keithley this is all about trying to fight for a championship. He's got the better run there out of the Britain chicane, but again, frustratingly, he's on the outside line into his lock, gets his nose ahead. The inside line is held by Newsham. He's a bit wide over the grass. This is all getting a bit clumsy, but still, it is Dave Newsham ahead. Brilliant.
He's really pulling his touring car experience out here, isn't he, Dave Newsham? He's showing Callum just how to do it. He'll probably screen record this and show it back and say, come on, if you're going to win a race, this is how you do it. Speaking of winning a race, Isaac Smith is about to do such a thing. The second race here at the Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy goes the way of Isaac Smith, who will score half points for Rob Butler, his mate. Jack McIntyre comes across the line to come 2nd place, and then Jack Smith comes home in 3rd. Both of those two drivers are actually taking double podiums here tonight. Kenny Press will come across the line for a fantastic silver first place, I should say, tonight. And that is an absolutely astonishing drive from Kenny Press. Fair play to him. Probably the best drive I've ever seen him do. Dave Newsham is 5th, with Keithley comes home as 6th.
Yeah, fantastic effort that from Press and from Newsham to fend off Keithley at the end. Axelson 7th, Brennan 8th. Bolton in 9th, and Johnson, despite a couple of offs, is 10th. Rich Hayden 11th. He survived most of the madness there to take a strong 11th place finish, with Dave Buki next. He ends up 4th within his class at the end, ahead of Carol Zanatachi, who'll be a bit frustrated after his off down at the chicane. Here's Joel Lask, who showed flashes of pace, actually, in the earlier part of the race, but also had a couple of offs as well, with Thorpe and Sutton in behind. The last few stragglers just making their way to the line. But for Isaac Smith, that is a little bit of redemption after his technical issues that really took him out of contention earlier in the night. If you give someone like Isaac pole position and clean air, he's going to be tough to beat, isn't he, Jack?
Yeah, it's that's certainly one to keep an eye out on going forward. He's not officially entered into the series, but fingers crossed he decides that this one was enough fun that he's going to jump in next week, as well as Rob Butler. So that would be really interesting to see. Plenty of drivers who've ended up DNFing as well, unfortunately. Mick Sutton, Nicky Taylor, Felvis, Brown and Walters, all drivers who haven't managed to actually finish the race, unfortunately. And just worth mentioning, we've had a little chat on the Discord, in our little commentators Discord and everything, and we have gone for Jack McIntyre for the driver of the day as well. So big round of applause for him. But of course, we'll be having a chat to him in a couple of minutes, Andy.
We will indeed. We'll start though, shall we, with our race winner, Isaac Smith. Isaac, a night of two halves for you, really. We believe you had some technical problems earlier on in the night. That kept you out of contention through much of qualifying and race 1. But starting from the front row, you must have always felt good about your chances in race 2.
Yeah, well, I had a power cut, sadly, in qualifying. So I joined qualifying and that was it. That's all I got of it. I managed to squeeze 2 laps in and put it P6. And then I had issues again at the start of race 1, which was just unheard of, really. Not what I expected at all from tonight. Especially, I didn't even expect to be doing this tonight, to be honest. I kind of got thrown in at the deep end and come out okay, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Rob, who you're subbing for tonight, will be pretty pleased with the results you managed to get for him. Obviously, you're scoring some points towards his championship, but I believe you're considering maybe coming and getting involved yourself. Have you enjoyed what you've seen tonight?
Yeah, I always enjoy working with VRRC. It's always a good time. It's clean races, and that's what you always want on the Sims, so you can never complain. And yeah, you might see me if you get lucky.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations anyway. You've shown everyone once again how fast you are here tonight with that race win. Huge congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Jack, that was Isaac Smith, the race winner, but our driver of the round, Jack McIntyre, is with you now.
Yeah, Jack, congratulations on the second place and driver of the round. To be honest, I think what pipped it for you in terms of driver round, it was very close between yourself, Jack Smith, and Kenny Press, actually, in the end. But I think it was that sort of clean, concise nature that you got through the field. You were pretty much instantly at the front within 5 minutes. How did that sort of first couple of laps go for you?
Yeah, well, thank you for the drive of the round. That's really cool. First lap, I mean, if I'm completely honest, I think I just got lucky. There was a few incidents in front of me, and the seas parted, as it were, and there was some gaps that I managed to get through, and yeah, it was just one of those times, for every 10 times that you have a horrible start and the cars are all in the wrong place, every now and then it goes right. So that was one of those times, thankfully.
Yeah, motorsport is 80% disappointment, 20% elation, isn't it? Even if it is that kind to you. I was just going to mention, you didn't quite have the overall pace compared to, say, Smith and Brennan in qualifying. Is that just a case of, because we're normally we see you and Brennan especially pretty much nose to tail for the entirety of races and championships. Was Oulton Park maybe just not feeling it for you tonight, or are you looking forward to maybe some other tracks a bit more?
I'm not too sure. I mean, the front-wheel drive cars don't suit me too much. I think I much prefer a wheel drive car, so it's maybe a little bit of that. But yeah, they're a bit more fun as well. But no, I think it's maybe just that, and I need to test a little bit more. The guys were just on another level in terms of pace. There was a few tenths that I just didn't have. Like usually you can tell where you're losing time and where you can pick it up, but not really here. So a bit more work to do before next round, I think.
Well, plenty of time in the week to do such a thing, so hopefully, obviously, we'll see you pushing forward and obviously making it a three-way fight for that pole position. I'm sure you will. You always come up trumps in the end, Jack. So big congratulations on coming in second place in the race too. And that AOC Gaming keyboard will be on its way to you, I'm sure. You know how to get it by now. You've won enough driver of the days. Get in contact with Rich.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Awesome job from one of the many Jacks racing with us here tonight. And there are too many Jacks here, I'm not going to lie. It's got us both confused at one point or another tonight. It's another Jack we're going to speak to now. Jack Smith, not for the first time tonight, we're chatting to you because it's been, all in all, a pretty good night. Pole and a win, and then a real fighting drive there to third. I'd imagine the early laps were pretty intense in that one.
Yeah, no, definitely could have been better on that first lap, to be honest. A little bit. Well, me and Jordan side by side through Island Bend there, and I just sort of hesitated and sent myself onto the grass. So I was lucky to keep it out of the wall there, but yeah, had some work to do after that, and just sort of, yeah, like I said, made my way through the field one by one, and yeah, got lucky with a few incidents in front of me, and yeah, made the most of what I had.
And of those that did well in the first race, really, you and Jack McIntyre were the two that came out of it better in race 2. We've just got the provisional points in front of us now, and it does look like you're 6 points ahead. I know it's early in the championship, but it's only a 6-week championship, so how much do you have one eye on that point situation already?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's only the first round, and we can only do as well as we can each round, so yeah, I'll just try and put on the same performance next week at Silverstone, and yeah, just, you know, like I say, get my head down, and I won't be worrying about the championship until it's over.
There we go. I thought you might say something like that. Either way, you're off to a brilliant start in the championship. Congratulations on a fantastic night here at Oulton Park. We'll see you again next week.
Cheers, guys.
So there you go then, Jack. Fantastic opening night of the season, and I don't really know where to start, quite honestly. I thought after race 1 I had a rough idea of how the season was going to go. That dramatic second race has turned things on its head, though. There is confirmation of what I just mentioned. Jack Smith scoring 28 points out of a maximum 32, so he's done pretty well for himself here tonight. Jack McIntyre second in the points, and they were really the only two within the gold class that had any form of consistency, really. You can see there, Jack, the gap back to Jordan Brennan and the rest third on back.
Yeah, I think the likes of Brennan, Isaac Smith, who obviously that'll be changed slightly. It'll be given to Rob Butler and it'll be halved. Keith Lee and Newsham, Axelson, they'll all be very much hoping that what happened to them tonight happens to Smith and McIntyre in maybe the next round or at some point going forward over the next 6 weeks. But really, obviously, you can read from first down to 11th there. Unfortunately, Carl Felvis and Robert Walters tying with 10th place right at the bottom. But what's really astounding, Andy, is if we scroll down just a touch, look at that silver. I mentioned it halfway through race 2 about how the silver is often closer than the gold. And Paul Sanatechi leading the way, but only by 3 points. And then look at that. Kenny Press, Dave Buki, Rich Hayden, we're waiting on clarification because he was listed as gold on the timing tower, but he's silver, it appears, on the points, but all tied on 18 points. Eric Bolton and Martin Johnson, who obviously came second and third and had a lot of contact in that race number 2, they're tied on 16 for the battle for the top 5. Then Mick Sutton and Andy Carroll tied on 10, and Laskin Thorpe tied on 4. So realistically, that silver, there's so many battles, there's inter-battles that are going on. We're going to have to be constantly writing notes and doing calculations throughout the season because that's going to really be very interesting.
Yeah, so in the gold class, the top 2 drivers are separated by 6 points. 5 points cover the top 6 drivers in the silver class. So puts it into perspective a bit, doesn't it? And it does sort of prove your point about how consistency is maybe going to be a challenge for the drivers in that silver category. It is early days, though. We've still got 5 more weeks of competition to go. We're not handing out any championship prizes just yet. In a week's time, we will be racing at a very different kind of track, Jack. The Silverstone International Circuit will be hosting the next round of our championship. We will, I think, see a very different style of racing from that track, won't we?
I think a lot of people will see it as a relief, to be honest, compared to Oulton Park. It's wide, it's fast, it's flowing. There's plenty of opportunities to get out of people's way. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, quite often in VRRC and generally sim racing in general, to be honest. Silverstone's always a very entertaining one. As I mentioned, there's plenty of overtaking opportunities because you can pretty much go 3 wide anywhere you like. So very much looking forward to that.
And Jack, there is plenty more racing on the VRRC, isn't there, to be enjoyed? We're both fans of Mazda MX-5 racing, both real and virtual MX-5 racing, and I know you're quite familiar with the VRRC Championship. That is out at Donington Park next week.
Yeah, I should have this down as a script, to be honest, because I read it out after every broadcast for VRRC. But yeah, round 2, Donington Park. In fact, no, we've already had round 2 at Donington Park in the MX-5 Cup. That was last Tuesday, so we're going to be going a little bit further forward, I believe. But it's still, the MX-5 Cup is fantastic for VRRC. And plus, there's loads of other stuff. If you're into sim racing, you want to be involved with VRRC, because there's Forza Horizon sort of socials. There's obviously a Assetto Corsa Championship. There's a Assetto Corsa Competizione fun races. And there's Dirt Rally as well. In fact, there we go. Tom O'Fowle on the broadcast bringing up that graphic. And including on Assetto Corsa, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I'd like to get involved, but I'm not sure how I'd stand up to the rest of the field, I want to sort of sample it a little bit. Well, we do fun races on a Sunday night where pretty much it's a random car and a random track that we just sort of throw together, and we just have a lot of fun on a Sunday, and we get out there, it's not broadcasted, and you just see what you're made of, basically, with the VRRC community. So if you like anything that's sort of on your screen right now, then the link to the Discord is down below in the YouTube channel. You can obviously subscribe to YouTube and get yourself into Discord, and someone will take you through it.
Indeed, it's a great community to be a part of. Look forward to seeing some of you there. Thank you everyone for tuning in today, and thank you for all of your interaction in the YouTube chat as well. So many comments there. We hope that you enjoyed what you saw here tonight. It's been a very entertaining opening night of racing in the Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy, powered by VRRC. I've been Andy McEwen. Jack Oliphant has been alongside me. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place, as the teams and drivers will head to the high-speed Silverstone International Circuit. You don't want to miss it.
Woo!